Well, I guess the first episode did pretty well. Like, it has gained so many views in just a few days, which is a positive feedback, so thank you guys for this. And I'm sorry for uploading part 2 this very late because my college and other stuff got in my way, so I had to delay it constantly. But at least we're here now. In this episode, we'll be covering the first half of 2008, the maps that were added about 1 year after TF2 was released. And let's get right to it. You know, I didn't expect WoW to be, in my eyes, a better 2 fort, but people doesn't pay much attention to it. Except for a few things which I will get to in a moment. Probably because it doesn't have the fame that 2 fort has. Swapping the train station for a small shack and change the train cars to become cover was a pretty smart move. The main building also offers a verticality that 2 fort building doesn't have. And it's also quite fun to catch the intel grabber before they get out of your base. It also doesn't have the supply drop that 2 fort has because, you know, there's actually medkit and ammo outside. But of course, no map is perfect. If you remember my last video, I did say that this silver entrance was a clever way to go to the middle point, because now it only leads to the water trench outside your base, and of course you can't go in from outside either. Unless you're escaping with the intel or you're getting spawn cam from the outside, you probably won't use it. The spawn placement are pretty terrible because they are in direct sightline of anyone entering the base, and God help you if there's a sniper outside the door. And just like in CP mode, the final room, or now an intel room, it's still too open for my taste, and it might be worse. It makes sense in 5CP because it's the last point, so there's no way around it. But as an intel room, this doesn't really transfer well. Oh, god damn it. This is because technically there's no blind spot in the intel room. Because if there's someone standing on the intel, you are spotted the moment you enter the room. It's still a fine map though, it's just not as bad as something else down the line. Badlands is pretty much the second granary in my opinion. It plays well and also has aged well. The middle point is pretty good, and that's probably the reason why it lives on to be a King of the Hill map and arena map. It has some good elevations and also it has 3 different paths that are easy to remember. But I personally don't play 5CP as much, and that's why I keep confusing it with the King of the Hill version, which has some different ammo and health placement, like this medkit for example. Oh yeah, even though if you haven't kept the middle point yet, you can go to the second spawn. I'm not sure if this is intentional, but it is good for its applying. I have a feeling the spar is very biased against jumping classes because anyone who cannot jump, they got some real disadvantage going up. Inside the main base, the hallways are a bit narrow, but they are not as choky as Dust Bowl. But the compact size of the building kinda throw me off at times. Also, I keep forgetting that there's a flank route on this side and not on the other one. So yeah, watch out where you place your sentries. But overall, this map plays well, just like Granary. I think this map was made to get people to play the medic more because of the amount of choke point in this map. It came out in the very first update to TF2 and it's also the first payload map in the game by the way. So I'll give it a bit of a leeway for that. In the first part of the map, flanking routes basically doesn't exist. Every path is basically a high traffic route, so Scout and Spy will have a really hard time on this map. Capping the first point gives you 5 minutes to the clock, and trust me, you will need all of that 5 minutes. This tunnel is just a bloodbath for the blue team. The 3 paths that you can take also doesn't make any difference because they drop you at around this spot. This tunnel that leads you to the red spawn is a bit too risky in my experience. I mean, yeah, you get to spawn camp the red team, but you probably gonna get caught by a sentry or someone on the red team. Although, to be fair, if they leave it open, it's a bit satisfying to do it. About the second point as a whole though, there's not a lot of cover around here. And your only cover is the payload cart itself. This is made even harder because this tunnel is pretty much your only flanking route at this point. And then we go to the second stage. And this certain design reminds me of, something. Yeah. Okay, you know what? Gold Rush actually does look a lot like Dust Bowl. When you're attacking, make sure you push out of the spawn because you can get spawn camp very easily. But you're probably fine after that because I've never seen a red team that defend the first point itself. They pretty much only set up around the spawn gate. The second point is pretty much the second point of Dust Bowl as well, but slightly better. The fact that the tunnel splits in 2 and the cart only goes into one of them, it really does create some small interesting dynamic play. And there's actually height in this part of the map, because you can go to the second floor and flank from above. But for the second point itself though, it's not really good. It borrowed the same layout from Dust Bowl Point 2 Stage 2, and it's even worse. It just screams bottleneck and it's just very narrow overall. And the blue sniper can potentially spawn camp the red team. So yeah, you better have a teleporter to escape those sightlines. And speaking of sightline, the second stage really gives the sniper some huge sightlines. But for the final part though, it's actually pretty decent. On the first point, each route are actually clear and distinct, and it's actually pretty merciful with cover. But I do need to minus some points, because the red team exit is like 3 inches away from the point. Just like in the same place in Dust Bowl if you ask me. Except you cannot be an engineer this time though. It is very rare for the red team to be able to defend the second point, but if you somehow can, you have some good advantage but not very good design wise. Since the blue team is forced to attack from this one linear corridor that doesn't have much flank routes. It's a bit hard to get a sentry on this spot, but if you do, man, it's so worth it. And for the final point, I think Valve kinda redeemed themselves. Because this is exactly the final point of Dust Bowl, but it has some good tweaks here and there. This trench is no longer a waste of time for blue because you can go around to this tiny house to snipe the sentries or just flank them. And you stay hidden for most of the time too. This bunker is also not lit and the sniper can stay hidden here and pull off some sneaky kills. But at the cost of having little space to move around. It's still a one big choke point, but it's also a step up for what it once was. So yeah, 1 out of 3 is pretty good. But if you ask me, I am not sure if I should play on part 1 and 2 just to move on to part 3 that's actually pretty decent. I don't know if it's gonna be worth it. But still though, I don't mind playing on this map much. It's just a bit too frustrating at times, to be honest. Better than Dust Bowl, I guess. Also, did I mention that this map probably has the best payload explosion in the entire game? One thing about this map is the aesthetic. It's really bland, which kinda give away how limited TF2 aesthetic was back in the day. As for the middle point, it's okay, I guess? I like how there's a gap at this medkit. It doesn't see much action in practice though. Also, for the longest time, I never know you can rocket jump onto the roof. Because nothing really indicates you can do that except for this small medkit that's too small to notice. The second point is so open, it's ridiculous. Holy shit! There is not much cover here and the sniper has some really huge sightline over the whole point. Nothing much to say about the main base, but they work fine. And just like 2-4, there's something odd with this metal platform. Explosive go through it and also sentry gun bullets. Fastlane is average in gameplay, but in terms of aesthetic, it was pretty bland. It really could use something to make the map stand out. Oh, Turbine! You know, I have some sympathy for 2-4 because it's the most iconic map. For Turbine though, I have no mercy for it. But you know what? Credit where it's due. I'm gonna go over what Turbine fixes from 2-4 first. Because of the small size of the map, it doesn't take long for both teams to get to the intel and into the base. Unlike 2-4, which you gotta really commit because there's no supply all the way through. And it takes a bit unnecessarily long time to get into the intel room and get out. And the bases are not as claustrophobic as 2-4 because there's enough space to move around. And that was it, really. I genuinely thought this would be longer, but I guess those are the only positive thing I can give for Turbine. So what is so bad about this? Well, first off, if you like playing Sniper and Engineer, I hope you have a good day because they are fucking omnipresent in this map. Because in this map, there's no place that these two classes cannot effectively cover. This walkway gives the Sniper so much view on the middle area. And if there's a sentry gun on the container, you might be fucked, because the only blind spot for it is this little corner it cannot reach, and it's very pixel precise too. The small size of the map also occasionally backfire because, well, you know that scout who's hell-bent on capturing the intel? He will arrive at the intel much faster because, well, the map is pretty small. I also can't believe that someone designed a spawn room with a fucking look-through glass. Because now if you're getting spawn cam, the enemy will always know what you're doing. And you probably will because one path to the intel requires you to walk past the enemy spawn. And lastly, the vent. I don't think anyone forget the huntsman spam here. It's pretty much a death trap because there's no way to avoid the damage if you run into the enemy, especially for spy. It also drops you at the intel in a very predictable spot, and it forces you to take fall damage. So if you're spy, this happens. Not very sneaky now, isn't it? I'm so sorry, Flopster, but I don't think your map has aged well, and it's probably gotten worse over time. I'm really sorry to say this. And that was it for the first half of the first year of TF2. I mean, I guess people didn't really expect much because TF2 was like very new at that time. Boy, I wish those people get to see what TF2 has become 10 years later. Like, we've gotten to the point that every time we hear the word update, we just freak out. Man, I guess it was a simpler time back then. But as always, I will see you in the next episode about the second half of 2008, the original heavy update.